Okay, so if we look at part C of the required, okay, so here they've asked us to prepare the unconsolidated structured entity note for the investment in solar business to the consolidated financial statements of Just One Energy Group for the year end 30th of June 2019. Okay, so guys, there's just a couple of hints here. So obviously they're telling you in this required that is the unconsolidated structured entity note. So we already know what that note looks like. We know that it is probably an entity that we've got shares in, but we actually don't control. So even though we have 100% of the shares, we don't control it, so we don't consolidate it. So it sits in our records as a separate investment. Okay. So let's go look at SBU. SBU, where are we? Here we go. All right, so the information that they give us tells us that Solar Business Unlimited was incorporated on the 1st of July in Botswana, with Joe subscribing for all of the issued shares. Okay, so here we know that we own 100% of the shares. Okay. All right, the activities of SBU were restricted through its incorporation documents, which its only objective being to carry out research and development activities. Okay, so it is an R&D, it's an R&D entity or shell. Okay, due to the availability of sunlight all year round, Botswana is a suitable country to perform solar energy research and development. Cool. Right, the company was established in collaboration with a leading research center, INUSA, and a comprehensive agreement was entered into between Joe and INUSA. The contractual arrangement stated that the voting rights in SBU relate to administrative tasks only. Okay, with INUSA directing the relevant activities by means of a contractual arrangement. So here, guys, we can already see, based on the information that we've been given, we do have voting rights, but we're only able to vote on the administrative tasks. Okay. The question goes further to tell you what are the relevant activities, and it goes even further than to tell you that INUSA is the one who controls these relevant activities. They've got the rights over these relevant activities. So just based on the information that we can see straight away, we don't control this particular entity. All right. The terms of the arrangement required Joe to provide financial support to SBU upon incorporation to fund the research and development activities. It was envisaged that that SBU would be able to obtain research grants to fund its future research costs. But Joe provided a loan amounting to 10 million rand, which carries interest at 10% per annum. So we know from the structured entity note, we'll have to disclose, well, what was our investment in this entity? So it looks like we haven't made an investment because we incorporated it from scratch and we took 100% of the shares, but we do have this intercompany transaction, okay? And this was then signed on the 1st of July 2017, okay? So as at the 1st of July or end of June 2018, we would have had 10% capitalized times 1.1. So that will give us a balance of 11 million. And at the end of 2019, we have another compounded interest, 10% interest. So that's going to give us 12.1 million. So that we're going to need to disclose as a transaction that we have with a balance or an entity that owes us effectively 12.1 million bucks. All right. The loan has no repayment terms and no interest or capital has been repaid up until the end of June. So we know that this total value of the loan, they haven't gotten anything back. So in your statement of financial position, that should reflect there as it is. However, if SBU requires additional funding and is unable to obtain external finance, Joe will always provide the additional financial support. Okay. All right. So from the looks of this, guys, do we have control? So the answer is no. So we don't consolidate. However, can you see that we are exposed here because INUSA controls, but they don't put in any money. So if this thing goes really badly, Joe is the one who stands to lose, and they would stand to lose the 12.1 million bucks that they've invested. Now, further to that, if we look at the information, it says SBU has been relatively successful during the 2018 financial year, but due to extremely competitive research, losses were now incurred in 2019. So yes, INUSA is the one who controls and they make the decisions, but they are not exposed to the variable returns. Okay. So this then means, all right, so this has necessitated SPOO to obtain and utilize an overdraft facility. A condition of the overdraft facility was that the loan from Joe to SPOO has to be subordinated. Okay, so you can see that the one who's actually taking the risk here predominantly is Joe. Because not only have they put the money in, now they need to subordinate that loan in order for SPOO to get the overdraft facility. Okay, so we're going to have to disclose that in our financials, because in our consolidated financials, you'll remember we've said, okay, we don't control this entity. However, we do have an investment in there, so we have to disclose why we don't control that particular entity, why it hasn't been consolidated. And then in addition, what are the other intercompany transactions, and what is the maximum potential loss that we could have out of investing in this particular entity. So I'm sure you guys will agree with me that, well, we can't lose more than what we put in. So our loan sits at 12.1 million bucks, which means our maximum loss is also at 12.1 million bucks. Okay. So if we have a look at the solution, part C. Okay. So they've asked us to provide the disclosure. So remember, the disclosure requires you to explain. All right. So we own all the shares in an unconsolidated entity. Okay. Through a structured entity, through a contractual agreement with Inusa. The contractual arrangement states that Joe's voting rights is only with regard to admin, and the relevant activities are through Inusa. So therefore, we do not control. End of story. Okay. It was incorporated with one objective, to do R&D, and the contractual arrangements puts Joe in includes a provision that means that Joe would be required to put in additional finance should SPOO not be able to obtain external finance. Yes, Joe has been earning interest income. So remember, from this loan, the 10 million bucks, they will be earning the interest income of 10% during the financial year. Yeah, but in order to obtain the credit, we now needed to subordinate that particular loan. So that means not only will we lose our capital, but also the interest. Okay, and now this has started to become likely because the research environment has started becoming quite competitive. Okay, and in addition to that, we also made losses in 2019 in that particular entity. So that's how come we then describe our carrying values and the exposure to the loss. So our carrying amount of the loan, we already calculated at 12.1 million bucks. Our maximum exposure is 12.1 million bucks. And the line item where you find this investment, okay, because remember, we don't consolidate this entity, so this intercompany loan would not be eliminated. So our financial investments or long-term assets, this 12.1 million bucks would be sitting in there. So as for purposes of our note, we have to explain where this potential loss is sitting at in our consolidated financial statements. Okay.